Okay, good afternoon everyone that's managed to tune in today, and thank you for listening to today's tele-seminar. Today we will be discussing Discover Los Islotes and the Sunset Coast of Panama. I'm James Archer, I'm the Sales Director for Live and Invest Overseas for our property division. And I'm happy to say that today we're joined by one of the principals who I'm sure many of our listeners will know, Lief Simon from Live and Invest Overseas, who is going to be discussing Los Islotes with us. Lief, are you there?
I am here, James.
Okay, perfect. Well, we'll get the show on the way, as they say. I just wanted to start off firstly by asking anyone that's tuned in over the webcast, so online, you'll notice a question box on your screen, hopefully. Feel free to ask us any questions. We will be taking questions at the end. We'll discuss some parts about the project first, and then we'll jump into questions from listeners. So feel free to fire away. We welcome as many questions as possible, and we'll get to as many as possible within the time constraints. So Lee, just to start us off, and many of our listeners I'm sure will know Los Islotes and heard us speak about it before at conferences or through our newsletters. But maybe you could just start for the ones that haven't necessarily heard much about it or know a lot about it, giving a little bit of an introduction to Los Islotes and your involvement in it, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, James. Well, Los Islotes is kind of the brainchild of myself and David Stubbs. David and I were looking for kind of the next place in Panama for real estate opportunities when we started looking on the western coast of the Azuero Peninsula, and over the course of 9 or 10 months we looked at a lot of properties and what we might be able to do with them. And when we came across Los Islotes, we knew we'd found an excellent property from both a development point of view, but also just the views and the way the property is laid out. And so we started from that, finding the property, going through the master planning process, and so now Kathleen is involved as well, and we've master planned the full property into a gated community. We're going to build a town in the center of the community that'll be open to everybody, but the residential area will be gated. And our idea is to really to build a place where me, Kathleen, David, and some of our other people involved want to spend time. So we've put a lot of thought into how to design the town, what will be included in the town, the style of houses, the size of the lots. We're doing oversized lots for oceanfront community in this part of the world. Most of our lots are going to be a third to a half of an acre. Some are even larger than half of an acre, as opposed to postage stamp lots that you can find in some places. And so that's generally the vision for Los Islotes.
Fantastic. And you mentioned there, obviously, the Azuero Peninsula. You touched on it. What specifically drew you to that location? I know your search was high and wide across Panama. What appealed to you so much about this part of the country?
Well, initially it was the prices. And the eastern side of the Azuero Peninsula had already been bid up on raw land prices, had already been discovered by the gringo developers, and frankly is overcrowded from our perspective. There's a lot more local population on the eastern side of the peninsula. And then once we made it to the western side, we were pleasantly surprised that a paved road had been installed, finished a month before our first trip down that side of the peninsula, which was great. And the terrain on the western side is much hillier and undulating, so you have more dramatic views both to the interior and also out to the ocean, because you're higher up on the eastern side until you get around to the bottom of the peninsula. It's fairly flat, so if you're not ocean front, you don't have much of an ocean view, whereas the case of much of the land on the western side, you can be back even a few kilometers from the ocean and still have an excellent ocean view. In our case, we have both. Los Islotes is oceanfront property, but even from the backlots in Phase 1, actually some of the backlots in Phase 1 have better views than some of the other lots, just because they have a higher altitude.
Okay, fantastic. And I know from many of my visits down there as well, in seeing lots of Panama, it's one of the only real places that there are sort of a mountain region right on the coast, if you like, which I think makes it quite spectacular. And in this project, I mean, as it gets underway and completed, etc., I mean, what's the vision for this project, and who are the target audience of residents you expect in this project, and how many people will it house eventually?
Well, it's the full master plan has about 750 acres, and so the full estimate, as we had to do for the permits, would put if everybody was living there full time between the number of lots and the condos projected, the total population would be about 5,500 people in Los Islotes. Of course, people aren't going to be living there full time. I think the target market for Los Islotes is the retiree, someone who's looking to retire in the next, say, 3 to 5 years is a perfect timeline for them to be able to get a lot now, and with the developer financing, pay that lot off and then build a house in time for them to retire. Or someone who's looking for just a less expensive beachfront second home, when you know less expensive compared to, say, Mexico or California. And so people looking for those kinds of opportunities are going to find what they're looking for.
Brilliant. And with regards, I mean, you touched on it there. So the idea in this project is that you know, people interested would purchase a lot and then they build their own house. Obviously, that offers some level of need for communication with companies here, such as construction companies, architects. How do you help clients on that side of business? So if I come along and I would purchase a lot, then what's the sort of next steps and help in terms of getting that completed? Will you be offering advice on certain architects, constructors, and so that clients are not left alone?
Well, at the moment, we're just getting the infrastructure installed in phase 1, and so we've just started the conversations with local architects and builders. We have our main architect in Panama City who's helped us design the Mango Village area and the town area. Unfortunately, he's in such demand that he's fully booked for all of the rest of this year. But we have some other architects that we're interviewing, and I just spoke with our project manager, Gary, this morning, and he's recently found out that there are some expats who have moved to the area along our coast over the last, say, 3 to 6 months, who are builders, and so they're looking for things to keep themselves busy. I think one of them's even looking to start up a full-time construction company. So he's going to start interviewing them and then pass them on to me. So we will have recommendations for both builders and architects for people, whether it's some of these expats who are living down there or locals who are living in Santiago or Panama City. Okay.
And in terms of, you touched on it briefly in the last 2 points as well, in terms of infrastructure, where is the project at right now? I know this has been something that has taken up some of your time over the last few years and getting everything in place. So can you give the listeners today a bit of an update on exactly where it's at in terms of infrastructure, what you have open right now, etc.?
Sure. So we have full permitting on phase 1, which is about 57 hectares, or I guess that's about 120 acres. And so that has all the permits. We have the full zoning for all the property and the full environmentals for all the property. But right now, as far as infrastructure permits go, we have phase 1 in hand. And Gary cut the roads last dry season, and this dry season he's finalizing some drainage and things on the roads, opening up the main entrance into the property, which he had to cut into the side of a hill. So that took a lot of work the past couple of months. And he's starting to put in the underground infrastructure. And unlike a lot of projects in our area that are just basically cutting a road and putting in lot markers and saying, here's your lot, our infrastructure is going to be full infrastructure that North Americans would expect. So we have nice wide roads. We'll have underground electricity, water, and wastewater. We'll have a central wastewater treatment plant, which is actually unusual in all of Panama, but definitely unique to our part of the Azuero coast. and we expect the target is to have all of that in phase 1 by the end of this year. Gary's starting with the water pipes next week, actually, and then he'll move on to electricity and then the wastewater pipes.
Fantastic. And just obviously, I'm quite conscious that we want to try and get to as many client questions as possible, but just to touch on a few more areas. You mentioned there about the utilities, etc. And what other sort of amenities can people expect from this project once it's complete in full? So obviously there's the town centre, which will have commercial units, retail shops, etc. What other sort of activities and amenities will be available as well once the project is completed?
Well, we'll have several clubhouses. We'll of course put a clubhouse down at the beach that'll have a pool and changing facilities and showers and that, and a barbecue area. So if somebody wants to have a little get together down at the beach, they can do that. We'll also have an amenity specific for Mango Village up on the top of a hill. Mango Village is an area of smaller lots for someone who wants to build, a small house, 1 to 2 bedroom house. In a flat area that doesn't have ocean views, but the hill that's kind of in the middle of Mango Village does have a slight ocean view, and so we're going to put a small clubhouse and pool up there for the owners in that section. The town will have stables. We'll have stables for, I think we'll probably have stables for 8 horses, so people can go horse riding. We'll have trails through the green areas, so you could even hike or take a horse from the town all the way down to the beach, going through the green areas and crossing over a couple of the roads. And then in the town, there's lots of opportunity for people to come up with their own ideas. But we've had people tell us that they want to come and start a pie shop, a pastry shop, a coffee shop, a sports rental shop. So diving equipment or surfboards or ATVs or things like that, kayaks. And so in the town, those services will be available, and there's opportunity for people to start a small business there in their retirement to help keep them busy. And I'm trying to think of what else. We'll have a pétanque field somewhere. That's the game from France where you try and throw the heavy little balls as close to the small little ball, if anybody knows what that game is. So there's lots of little things like that we're going to include in the project.
Great. Thank you for that very technical explanation on the last one. Fantastic. And moving outside of the project slightly, in this area, for people that haven't had the chance to visit and haven't been to this area of Panama before, there are some small towns around this area. What is the landscape of the local area and the towns? So can you describe it a little bit for people that may not have the chance to visit, what they can expect in this part of the country?
Sure. As I mentioned, we liked this side of the peninsula because it was less densely populated, but less densely populated also means less local services, which was one reason we decided to create the town, so we can create our own local services. But the nearest village, if you will, with a couple of they call them chino shops here, but little mini markets kind of thing, is about 15 minutes away. And then the main town of the district is Mariato, and that's about 45 minutes away. And there's some larger chino shops there. There's actually a bank opened up there a couple of years ago, so there's an ATM, so you don't have to go all the way into Santiago to get cash. And then Santiago is about an hour and 15, hour and a half away from the property. And in Santiago, you can find pretty much everything you need. There's large major grocery stores, hardware stores, lumber yards, clothes stores. Although you may not want to buy your clothes in those stores in Panama, you might want to wait till you get back home in the States. And there's even a 3-screen movie theater in Santiago that shows movies in English subtitled in Spanish. So for your big shopping, you'd want to go to Santiago, but for day-to-day stuff, you can get by with Mariato, I think.
Okay. And also, with regards to, obviously, this is quite a bit down the coast, so it's a bit of a distance from Panama City, about 4.5 hours, I believe, 4 to 4.5 hours. But with the Rio Hato Airport, I mean, maybe you'd like to divulge on that a little bit more. How sort of close is that to the project, and what is this Rio Hato Airport that everyone keeps hearing about?
Right. The new airport is about 2.5 hours from the property, which makes it obviously much more convenient of a drive than coming from the Tucumán airport at this point. That airport is officially opened. I've been told the first charter flights will start coming in May 1st, which is probably a little disappointing for the resorts that are right near the airport, since the high season is now until May 1st. But the airport's done and ready for flights. It'll start with these charter flights coming in from Canada, and I think there's some even coming in from Europe. That'll mostly bring people to the resorts that are immediately around the airport. And then over time, the expectation is that the scheduled commercial flights on the likes of United, American, will land at Rio Hato, bringing people in from the States, as well as continuing, those airlines will of course continue to fly into Tucumán, but landing in Rio Hato, if you're not going into Panama City, will add a lot of value to tourism and to retirees living in other parts of Panama.
Fantastic. And just one last section before we go into clients' questions or listeners' questions. In terms of moving into sort of the idea of people moving forward and purchasing, the lots, can you explain a little bit more about the size of the lots, payment terms you have offer, and maybe it's also a good opportunity to discuss the different types within Phase 1. You obviously have Mango Village, Ocean View, and the Mountain View, and maybe you could just describe the differences between them and what sort of entry level people can come in at in different areas.
Sure. Well, the Mango Village area we had originally zoned for only apartments because it was a flat area, and we thought, few people are going to be likely to want to build a house there without an ocean view on this flat land. But then we started getting inquiries about smaller lots and lower price lots. So we redesigned Mango Village so that it has 39 small lots, and these are the poster-sized lots I was referring to before that you see for ocean front properties in Panama. They're anywhere from 400 to 600. I think the biggest is 1,000 square meters, and 1,000 square meters is a quarter of an acre. So you can adjust from there for acreage sizes. And so 600 square meters is about an eighth of an acre. And so there's 39 of those with prices starting at, I think of the ones that are left, starting at $32,000. And because of the zoning, the commercial zoning here, these lots are allowed lot line construction. So you can use your entire lot for your construction if you want, with the exception of the front and back lines, which have some setback requirements, but the side lines you can build to. And they're really designed for someone to build a 1 or 2 bedroom casita or cottage, whichever term you prefer to use, and then have access to all the amenities and the beach and the clubhouse that I talked about up on that hill. Also in Mango Village, we still left an area for condos that we'll start putting together the plans for this year, and hopefully have those start to be available for sale in the beginning of 2015. Then the next section that we've kind of parceled out is called Toucan Forest, and those are kind of mountain view lots with a creek running through it. So it's forest because there's lots of trees on these lots. And those prices are a little bit more. Those lots are a little bit bigger as well. I think the smallest one there is 1,000 square meters, and that one's probably sold. So the next step up is around 1,500 square meters, or a third of an acre. And prices there start in the $60,000 range. And more than half of those are gone already because we had some initial nice financing options on those parcels. And then there are other mountain view lots not inside Toucan Forest that face two. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Of the mountains. There's a national park at the end of the peninsula with a 3,000-foot peak there, and you can see those very nicely from these other mountain view lots. And then the ocean view lots are ocean view lots. There's different aspects, different angles for each of the ocean view lots, and those lots run. We made a few of them at 1,000 square meters or a quarter of an acre, but most of them are a third of an acre to a half an acre, as I mentioned before, and those prices start in the $70,000 to $75,000 range. And then we still have some financing offering available. Currently, it's 20% down on any lot except for Mango Village, and 36 monthly payments. So it's a good way for somebody to, again, get their lot at an early end price still. We just raised prices March 15th, but prices are still very reasonable, and they'll continue to go up. Get your lot now, start making your payments, and then start planning to build in a couple of years when you're closer to retirement. Or if you're ready now, we definitely have the lots available, the infrastructure is going in, and the first house that we're building, the Founders Lodge, we broke ground last month, and we're in the process of finalizing things with the contractor to get him underway.
Okay, great. And that leads me nicely into the client question. Actually, one of the questions was with regards to, has anyone started building yet? So obviously you've touched on that in the fact that the Founders Lodge, the clearing and foundation work is starting now. When do you envisage the Founders Lodge to be finished?
Well, I've learned it's hard to predict things in Panama, but our goal is for it to be ready this time next year. So we might not get as much done before the rains start as we'd hoped, but we'll continue to work through the rainy season. And it should take 9 months to 12 months to build a house out in our area. And the Founders Lodge is a little more complex in its design, so we might have to extend that a bit. We also have, I'll just add in here, 2 owners who are already in discussions with architects for planning their house. They want to start building as soon as possible as well. So hopefully by the end of the year we'll have at least 3 houses already underway.
Fantastic. And moving into some more questions, Lanny asks, how much underground and road paving is complete?
Oh, okay. So you mean underground infrastructure and road paving? Well, we haven't paved any of the roads yet. We won't actually be paving per se. We're not going to put asphalt down. We're going to put down what's called adoquines, which are basically paving bricks. And there's lots of reasons for that, but one of the main ones is that it helps water be absorbed through the bricks, so there's not as much runoff, and also it'll make repairs easier and cleaner in the long run, and it'll just look nicer than asphalt. And so the roads themselves are cut. There's 3.4 kilometers of roads in phase 1. All the roads are cut. There's something that they use to compact the roads called Tosca. Gary has Tosca on, I think he's up to 3 kilometers of the 3.4. And there's no easements in Panama. Everything's a right-of-way. So our road right-of-way is 15 meters wide, which is crazy wide when you see it on the ground. The road itself will only be 12.8 meters wide, and then the rest of that is where the underground infrastructure gets placed, but it can't be an easement on somebody's lot the way Panamanian law works. The underground work, Gary's getting started now, so he expects to have the water lines to lot number 10, where the Founders Lodge is going to be built, done in the next, say, 2 or 3 weeks.
Great. And we've had a number of people, and I know you touched on this earlier, but maybe it's a good opportunity just to reiterate, asking about condos availability, when you expect to have availability, and how many condos you'd have. I know you mentioned this earlier, but maybe you'd just like to clarify just one more time on when you're expecting condo opportunities to be available in this project.
Right. There's 7 condo areas in the overall master plan. The first one that we're going to, and there's 2 in phase 1. So the first one we're going to work with and design are the condo buildings for Mango Village. And there's 4 buildings planned there. We might get a 5th one in, but I'm not sure at this point. And there'll be 12 to 16 units per building. So say about 50 condo units available in Mango Village. Once the plans are finalized, we'll know more details there. But I'm hoping to have the architect at least get the schematics done and to a point where we can start doing pre-sales by the end of the year. And then once we start construction, which the goal would be next dry season, next January, February, it will take probably a year to 18 months for the condos. It's a bigger structure, so it'll take a little bit longer than a house.
Okay. And Mark asks, if a lot is purchased, when do homeowners association fees start being charged? And I'll add to that, what do you expect the homeowners fees to be roughly?
So the homeowners fees won't start until infrastructure is to your lot. So our current buyers aren't paying HOA fees at this point, but I expect them to start paying those later this year once the full infrastructure is to their lots. And HOA fees, estimating those is, like trying to find this Malaysian airport in the Indian Ocean, I think. It's a needle in the haystack. But I've done an estimate up of $150 per month for lot owners. And at the end of the day, once everything's turned over to the HOA by the developer, the cost is what the cost is, but we're currently estimating that $150 a month should cover everything.
Great. And Laura, who has a few questions, Laura Nexter, asks, would a car be needed to live there full time, and when is the wet season? How much rainfall can you expect in that area?
The second question is easier to answer. The rainy season in Panama is broadly starts between April 15th and May 1st and ends December 15th to January 1st. That's kind of the general range. Sometimes the dry season the dry season goes on a little bit longer, or the rainy season goes on a little bit longer, as it did a couple years ago. We had rain into January 15th. Our side of the Azuero Peninsula doesn't get as dry as the eastern side. Not that we get more rain than the rest of Panama, as the eastern side gets less rain. So we tend to have stay greener longer on our side. And then say the first part of the question again, James?
Would a car be needed to live there full time?
The car. I would say yes. There are some people who would be happy to not have one, but really you're going to need a car. There are buses that go up and down the coastal road to take you into Santiago when you want to go into Santiago. But once Los Islotes in the town is fully built out, which will, a fully built out period will be a while, you could probably get by with maybe a golf cart in the community, and then know somebody who has a car to take you to Mariato or Santiago. But at the moment, I would say definitely you want a car, and probably you want a 4x4 vehicle, just to be safe. While the main road's paved, it's still the third world. If you want to go anywhere off of the main road, 4x4 is better just to be safe.
Yeah, and I would add that cars are definite, or a neighbour that is very friendly that has a car that doesn't mind moving you around. Another question here from Rob. How close are the nearest medical facilities?
Well, there are clinics in Arenas, which is the little village that's about 15 minutes from Los Islotes, but I think they only have somebody in that clinic once or twice a week. There's another clinic in Mariato that is staffed more often, but I'm not sure if it's every day of the week at this point. It's something we should confirm. And then the nearest hospital is in Santiago, and they've just spent, I forget the number of millions of dollars, but they've just spent a lot of money to extend the size of the hospital in Santiago. They've, in fact, just built a whole new 4 or 5-story structure behind the current hospital. And so that facility is large and about an hour and a half from Los Islotes. For immediate emergencies, our plan is to have, for lack of a better term, an emergency room in the town. So we'll have a place where it'll be equipped with a defibrillator, snakebite kits, things like that. And we have doctors who have purchased at Los Islotes who are interested in, donating time to the local clinics and also bringing down medical supplies for the local clinics and the schools. So once we get further along those lines, we'll start having serious conversations with those who have expressed an interest in helping out with that.
Yeah, and I can confirm the hospital in Santiago has been increased to a size of 315 beds off the top of my head. So it's a good substantial size hospital and certainly very big for Panama. Another question from Rob here is, which is a great question, what is the insect life like, i.e. mosquitoes, sandflies, and are there snakes and any other sort of creepies, as you like to call them, on this area of the country?
Yes, the answer is it's the tropics, so all those things exist. And Los Islotes, when you look at the map, is bounded on the north side by an estuary, but it's a tidal estuary, not a river estuary. So it's brackish water, and so there's no standing water because of the tides, and it's brackish. So there's really no mosquitoes to speak of in Los Islotes. I've never seen one out there. I have seen them along that coast, so of course they exist. What I generally get bit by are the no-see-ums around my ankles when I'm hiking around the property, and that came mostly from the cattle that had been on the property. The cattle's gone now, so last time I was out there, I was barely bit by anything. In addition, you know, there's the natural predators are still out there for all of these bugs. So there's lots of spiders. If you don't like spiders, you know, keep an eye out for those. I don't particularly care for spiders, and there's a season for them where their webs are everywhere out there. There are bats in the area as well. So the insect life is there, but it's kept down by Mother Nature at this point. And then as far as snakes goes, yes, we have snakes out at Los Islotes, as does all of Panama. And the ones to watch out for, the main one to watch out for is the fertile ants. And in fact, Gary, our project manager, has said I've not seen one out there in all the time I've hiked around and been on the property. But as he started moving dirt, of course, he was disturbing their nests, and he's seen several since we started cutting in the roads. But not in any abundance that would worry anybody.
Okay, great. And also from Chad is a question here, which is a good one, and I know you love tax questions, so I thought I'd ask you this one. Regarding U.S. taxing and reporting, when purchasing at Los Islotes, and if it is referring to if you're purchasing through the payment financial terms of monthly payments, those payments, when you're classifying those, what do you classify them as prior to closing and receiving title?
I'm not sure I followed the question. They're just payments. There's no tax implication with those payments. So there's nothing from a tax perspective to worry about your down payment or your payments for the lot. If you're purchasing it through a corporation and using the financing, the corporation won't be formed until the lot is ready to be transferred at the final payment. And then at that time, if you're using a corporation, that corporation will have some filing requirements in the U.S., but not until the corporation is formed, which would be at the end of the payment period.
Okay, great. And just some other questions here. I had a question from Susan, which says, do you do tours, and when are you doing them if you do?
Indeed, we do tours. The next tour is in April. We have a real estate conference for Live and Invest Overseas in Panama in April, and we're doing a Los Islotes tour prior to that, which is the Saturday and Sunday before the conference, which I believe is April 11th and April 12th, and or maybe it's April 12th and April 13th, and we'll be taking people out there. I think that tour's all but filled up at this point, and then we'll be doing the next general tour for Los Islotes we have 2 spots, Omar's telling me, for the April tour, and then the next tour for Los Islotes, I think we're going to schedule for June.
Okay, fantastic. And on that note, I'll just add that if people are interested in visiting and can't make the tours, we do try to accommodate people as much as possible. So as long as there's some fair warning, we'll more than happily have a conversation over the phone and then try and arrange a private tour for you if you can't make any of those days. So do let us know if you are thinking of touring and can't make the specific tour dates. Okay, one other question here, and this is quite I'm sure it's asked from a Canadian, put it that way, but it's best way to buy property in Panama for Canadians. So, again, structure questions. What are the options for people to buy property in Los Islotes?
Right. Well, the two main ways would be either hold title in your own name, which has some upsides for Americans, but also it has some downsides with regard to probate and passing the lot on to your heirs, which some people may not care about or worry about. For Canadian, and then the other way is to hold it through a Panama corporation. You could also hold the property through a non-Panama entity, and there's benefits to those, and it really depends on the individual. For Canadians, there's nothing different or from the downsides to the upsides from a tax perspective than there would be for Americans. You have the same probate issues if it's held in your own name. You'd have to go through your heirs. Would have to go through probate in Panama. In that case, if it's held in a Panama corporation, the benefit, we've set up a way to purchase through our parent company and our development company in Panama that we can help mitigate or eliminate property taxes in Panama long term on the land side by doing a structure through a Panama corporation, and you have to balance that savings against the annual cost of maintaining a Panama corporation, which is about $550 a year. So it's something to analyze as you're looking to put the title in place. You definitely want to make the right decision before title is transferred, because if you want to change the titling once you have the lot, then there are transaction costs. The government has transfer tax fees that you would have to pay if you wanted to retitle.
Okay, great. And a couple other questions here. Laura asks how many people, you may or may not know the answer to this, how many people live in Santiago? I'm sure you've got a rough idea. So Santiago being the closest major town, what sort of population levels are in Santiago, do you know?
Yeah, Santiago's been growing very fast, so my numbers are probably going to be off, but generally in the ballpark. I would say Santiago is in the 50 to 70,000 people range. And to put things in perspective, all of Panama has about 3.5 million people. Panama City and the immediate area around Panama City has about 1.5 million people. And then everybody else is kind of distributed about. David is the second largest city in Panama, and I think they have over 100,000 people. But there's a big gap between Panama City and David as far as population, and then Santiago is like number 3 or 4 at this point as far as population goes.
Okay, and that's a good point, that a lot of people that are coming here, especially retirees or people looking for a slightly quieter life, are not really interested in the city at this point, because it is a smoky, smoggy, traffic-filled city. So the coastline towns are really filling up across Panama and getting more and more popular. I mean, I can say personally, when I arrived here 3 years ago, places like Coronado, they were popular expats destinations, but now, I mean, it's brimming at the seams and people are moving further down the coast, and also to places like Boquete and El Valle, where the temperature's a little bit cooler. One more question whilst we're on geographic questions. What is the actual distance, and maybe that's, I'm sure you won't necessarily know that, but how far away is this from Costa Rica and Colombia in terms of the borders? Is this on the doorstep of those places or a fair distance away?
It's a fair distance away. Santiago is essentially the middle of Panama, and Panama is long and narrow and runs east to west. So the Pacific coast actually faces south for the most part, except for our peninsula that juts out into the Pacific, and our side faces west. And the Caribbean side faces north for the most part. Santiago's in the middle. Santiago is about 3 hours from Panama City, and then David is about 3 hours, 3.5 hours from Santiago, and then the Costa Rican border from David is, I've only done it a couple times, I want to say it's somewhere in the hour region. So from Santiago to Costa Rica is probably, call it 5 hours.
Okay, fantastic. And we are getting quite a few questions about two particular subjects, so I'm going to move on to those now, which is, can you give an idea of temperatures that you would expect in this part of Panama throughout the year, so lowest to highest, and also in humidity terms, what sort of levels would you expect?
Right. So our side of the peninsula, again, it's a little greener and it's a little wetter than the eastern side, so the humidity levels are higher. I'd say generally speaking, the Los Islotes area is cooler and less humid than Panama City, but Panama City is a city with all the asphalt and concrete absorbing the heat. Precise temperatures, I'm not certain. What I can say is up on the hills, the lots up on the ridge lines and things catch a nice breeze off the ocean, and there's been times out there, standing on our rancho, for example, in the shade, with a breeze coming through, where even in jeans and a short-sleeved T-shirt, you get a little bit of a chill just because of the wind action there. I would say that during the hottest time of the dry season, the temperature out there is going to be 85 to 90, as much as it is in the rest of Panama along the coast. In the rainy season, it'll be a little more humid, but a bit cooler. At night, it cools off. If you design your house properly to catch the breezes, you can probably just open up your windows and not have to bother with air conditioning to sleep.
Great, great. And another subject that we're getting quite a few questions about is things such as internet, cable TV. What's the plans on this project to service, those sort of things, phone lines, internet, etc.?
Well, long term, our plan is to have fiber optic running to each of the lots and have a central system that feeds into the homes. Short term, because obviously that's not going to be viable until there's enough enough addresses to warrant it. But short term, we've been working with a U.S. person who installs satellite systems for internet, and in fact, Gary, our project manager, has been the test case for this guy, and he's installed it at Gary's house that he's renting up the road, and he comes every couple of weeks and fine-tunes the position of the satellite receiver and checks on the internet, and Gary gets good internet, works very well for him, and so our intention is to use this satellite system in the short term and eventually have the fiber optic system running to each lot.
Great. And one other question on that note that I'll actually just answer, which is from Jacqueline. The only reason I really answered this one is she mentioned England and soccer, so that's definitely a better subject for me. Regarding TV and things like that in Panama, yes, you do have English channels here. You've got Warner Brothers, HBO, etc. There's two major providers, which is Cable Onda and Sky. So there's plenty of English channels. You get plenty of sports and everything else. So you wouldn't be here listening to Spanish TV all day long or having to use an internet system necessarily. All TV here, you can set it to English and Spanish, and a lot of channels are on English all day. Just moving
James,
on then to... yeah, sorry.
James, I'll just add to that because
Sure.
for Americans, Netflix is also available now in Panama. So if you have a Netflix account, you don't have to have a VPN anymore to obtain that in Panama. So it's another option for television.
Fantastic. And just, I know you talked about this earlier, but a lot of people are asking for clarification on it. So it's to do with pricing. So maybe you could give us a lot of people are asking how much are the lots. So maybe if you wouldn't mind just giving a pricing of, for example, Mango Village starting point to the highest point, and then Ocean View as well, and Toucan Forest, a rough guide, just because we've had quite a few questions of people asking about specific lot prices. Of course, you can also, after this, come directly to myself or anyone in my team, and we'll happily provide you with a price list. But Lief, maybe you could just touch on that once again, just for clarification.
Sure. So Mango Village lots, again, those are the smaller lots, eighth of an acre to the largest ones, a quarter of an acre, starting at like 32,000, and the biggest of those lots, I think, goes up to something like 75,000. Then on the non-Ocean View lots that include Toucan Forest and the Mountain View lots, those start in the, say, 65 to 75,000 range, and those can go up to, I think, 150,000 because there's one that's 3/4 of an acre, a very large mountain view lot. Then on the ocean view lots, those start at around $80,000. I think for the smallest one, $80,000 to $90,000 that's still available, and they go up to 140,000 for the what we call the frontline lots in phase 1 that are in the lots 1 through 4. I think are still available, lot number 7.
Great, fantastic. And did you mention Toucan there?
Yeah, Toucan is in the same price range as the Mountain View lot, so that that's 75 to, again, it's 150,000 for the biggest one, but most of them are in the 70 to 80,000 range.
Fantastic. And Sasha asks, for Americans, are we still exposed to Panama probate if the property is held in a revocable living trust? Bit of a tricky one there for you.
Yeah, I'd have to confirm with our Panama attorney that a living trust could hold title in Panama. It may not be a recognized entity in Panama, but assuming it's a recognized entity, then right, that would avoid the probate in Panama because the entity owns the property, and so when the person that is the primary beneficiary for that trust passes along, the property is still owned by that trust. It's just a different beneficiary. So yes, that would work, assuming that Panama would recognize the living trust as an entity.
Great. And one over here, sorry. So one of the things that George asks is regarding purchasing, if you were to purchase, is there a need to use a Panamanian lawyer?
A need, not necessarily, but we certainly recommend it, not only if you're buying from us, but if you're buying from anybody, to have a Panama attorney just review the contract and just look out for your interest. Other developers in Panama will say, oh, no need for an attorney. Our attorney will take care of everything. Well, of course their attorney will take care of everything, and their attorney will keep the interest of the developer in the foreground, and even though they might not be specifically trying to do something sneaky, it's just better for the buyer to have their own attorney and have them review the contracts just to make sure everything's the way it should be.
Great. And Judy asks, and I guess this extends out to all foreign ownership, not just Americans, but Canadians, etc. as well. What are legalities concerning American land ownership in Panama? So what are the rights of foreigners owning land and property in Panama?
Yeah, that's a simple answer. Foreigners are treated the same as Panamanians for all investments in Panama. There's no differentiation. There are no foreign ownership restrictions, with one small exception, and that is foreigners can't own property in Panama that is within 10 kilometers of an international border. So 10 kilometers from Costa Rica. There is some land that foreigners might want to own 10 kilometers from the Colombian border. That's in the Darien region. There's nothing there you want to own anyway. So other than those restrictions or that restriction, there's no foreign ownership restrictions.
Okay, great. And there's a few people that have sent in messages, which I'll just answer regarding coming in halfway through the teleseminar. We are recording it, so we will send out a recording of this. So if you have missed any part of this, don't worry. A recording will be sent out to you in the coming few days. So you'll be able to replay this and listen in more attentively, or get the parts that you've missed. And Jenny asks, regarding build requirements and guidelines, are there parameters? So this is a good subject to talk about, actually, because there is an overall design of the project, isn't there?
There is. We don't want people just randomly building anything and having some kind of hodgepodge housing views. And so the general term we're using for the construction style is Spanish colonial or Spanish colonial Mediterranean, but we have architectural guidelines that have been put together by our Panamanian architect to help people understand exactly what that is. And essentially, it's a few things you have to do. One is clay tile roofs. So the Spanish style clay tile roofs is a must. We're not going to let people use shoot fiberboard or any other kind of faux roof that looks like that. It has to actually be the clay tile roofs, and then the general style is that Spanish colonial from the outside. On the inside, you can paint it purple and put up funky little LA type lighting fixtures. That's fine, but it's the outside that we want to keep consistent, so that one, to help maintain property values and not have some crazy thing as a neighbor, and two, we eventually, especially with the town, we want this project, this community, to look like it's been there for 100 years, and so that it just kind of fits in with the surroundings.
Great. And just on the build requirements time, I mean, something else that may be good to ask there is there a time period that people must build within when they're purchasing these lots?
There is, and that is they need to start their construction within 3 years of infrastructure reaching their lot. So again, the buyers who've already purchased, their timeline hasn't started yet, but it will at some point during this year. And we expect construction to take no more than, putting it on the outside, 18 months from start. So if you wait to start in the last month of your 3-year cycle, then your house should be done within 4.5 years of the time you purchase.
Sure, and I believe it's slightly different for Mango Village, though. That's right, isn't it?
Well, we did some investor lots for Mango Village, and those particular investor lots have no build requirement, but otherwise the remaining lots do have that same requirement, and I think there's maybe only 6 lots left in Mango Village that would have that requirement anyway.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we've got to as many questions as we can without running out of time. So I guess I'll just leave this by asking one final question for myself. So what can people expect from the year ahead, this year, and then, of course, next year? How do you see this developing further and further, and what are the goals within this project over the next couple of years?
Well, this year our main goal is to get the Founders Lodge well underway and completed, so we can have it available for tours and use next dry season. We've had so many requests for full turnkey condos that I want to get the plans together for those first condo units in Mango Village this year, so that people can start buying condos next year. We can start constructing those for them. I also want to put the plans together for the first corner of the town, which is in the Phase 1 plan. It's all commercial area. The town will be mixed use, but this one particular corner is all commercial area. And we'll put those in, plans together so that we can have a formal on-site sales office, so where we can take people and show them everything while they're there, and then immediately take them to view the lot. So there's less of a disconnect for them between talking to us here in Panama City and then going out there and looking for lots. And then longer term, I'll just say real quick that we have lots of people, lots of owners who are already interested in building. So I think just next year will be more of the same. We'll have a few more houses started, and we'll continue to push ahead with building the clubhouses starting next year, and starting to build the community.
Great. And I had one more question, Lief, that's just come in from Anonymous, but it's a good question, I think, to ask, which is building costs. Can you give people an idea of what it would cost to build?
Well, we're in the process of getting quotes now for Founders Lodge, so we'll have a better idea once we have those bids in. But between the one builder that we've spoken with, our architect here in the city, and others who have built houses to the quality that we're looking for in Los Islotes out in our area, somewhere between, let me convert it to square feet, somewhere between $75 and $100 a square foot is the estimate. We just spoke with someone who built a nice house on his land out there, and he spent about $70 to $75 a square foot, and he probably didn't put in some of the finished qualities that we would for like the Founders Lodge, but it's a good quality house. You can build out there for as little as $40 or $50 a square foot, but then you're talking local housing, which isn't the quality level that we want to have in Los Islotes.
Fantastic. Well, I'll finish off just by leaving some contact details. If anyone does have any further questions, and sorry if we've missed any, we've tried to get to as many as possible, but you can reach out to me directly, which is, if you want to email me, it's james@losislotes.com. So that's LOSISLOTES.com. Happy to answer any questions. We will send out a replay of the tele-seminar as well, so everyone can listen again if they want to. And Lee, thank you for joining us today, and I'd also like to thank everyone that's tuned in and listened to this, and we look forward to any questions you have. But thank you, Lief, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
Great. Thank you, James. Bye, everyone.
The moderator has left the conference.